Good morning, indeed, grabbers. How do you turn a deal that won't cash flow into something that will? There's a couple of things we talk about from time to time. People talk about Airbnbs and things like that. But our guest today is going to give you a new way to turn those duds into deals. So you guys get ready. We'll be back in 45 seconds. Good morning, indeed, grabbers. Welcome to Goat Talk. This is our Little Rock edition Goat Talk. We're out here. Jody and I are hanging out in Little Rock, Arkansas. We're going to be speaking for our buddy and student Randy Thomason here at the Arkansas RIA tonight. We're going to do an all-day Saturday on Saturday. If you're in the area, come out and visit with us. We're going to be here for, the next 3 or 4 days. If you're with us on Facebook, we'd like to encourage you to go and subscribe to us on our YouTube channel. You can do that just by going to sub2tv.com. We're all fancy now. So you can also just go to our YouTube channel at Sub2 Deals, but sub2tv.com. Subscribe to our channel. We release a lot of videos every week, tips on real estate investing. Of course, we do Goat Talk there and our podcast. If you're looking for some affordable coaching, I've been doing this for 23 years now, so I know a thing or two about it, and I'll teach you how to do exactly what we do for $7 a month. If you can find a better deal than that out there, let me know, because I don't think there is one, but we'll answer all your questions and teach you how to buy all the houses you want without bank financing. So check us out at $7coaching.com. Guys, we're going to bring on our guest today. Well, we've got a fella here that I met just a couple of months ago, young guy, 28 years old. He's already got a portfolio of rental properties that's making him a ton of money. And he's going to talk about student housing today. So we want to welcome Ryan here today. Hey, Ryan, how are you?
How's it going, William? Thank you for inviting me on the show. I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, well, man, we're glad to have you. Always looking for some new ways to make money. Guys, say good morning to us. Say good morning to Ryan and me and Jody. We're all here. Hey, John's here this morning. Vincent's a recent transplant from California to Texas, so he can relate to some of the lack of cash flow, I think. Hey, Matt, good to see you. Sarah in Memphis, good to see you. Good morning, Mr. Goat. Not sure who that is. Guys, y'all going to have to go, I think, to, is it StreamYard.com, Facebook? Jody, my producer's right here. So we can see who you are. If y'all have questions about what we're talking about today, let us have them. Ryan says he's going to answer all your questions about student housing. Don't want to take up too much more of the time. Ryan, tell everybody about you, what you do, how you got started, and why student housing is so great.
Yeah, so I'm a pharmacist by trade. But I didn't want to do pharmacy until I was like 65, right? So I always wanted a way to build up passive income, and that's how I got into real estate. I actually had a grandpa who got into real estate back in the 1950s, bought a couple properties in the San Francisco Bay Area, and it basically made him a multimillionaire. He was able to retire early, and not only that, he was able to help fund a part of my college tuition and that of my brothers as well. So I realized that early on that real estate's one of the best ways to create generational wealth. So I wanted to get started as soon as possible. I started buying properties in 2016, using my own W-2 income and then reinvesting the cash flow because the properties were making so much cash flow because we were renting it out by the room. Mm-hmm. So typically I would be making around $1,500 to anywhere from like $1,500 to $2,500 in cash flow per month, which was pretty crazy because, again, renting out by the room, you can double your cash flow. So right now I'm making about $18,000 per month in rental income on my 6 properties.
Right. And between 18,000 a month in actual cash flow and depreciation and everything to offset that income, I mean, that's amazing. That is fantastic. So, yeah, we
Yeah.
definitely want to hear more about how that works. Hey, Stevie Wonder, good to see you. Stevie says, I finally made it to a live. So, hey, we're glad to have you. So tell us, Ryan, about student housing and exactly, what's the difference between student housing and so it's a rental business, obviously, but what's the difference in that and just buying a house and turning it into a rental property that you lease by the year?
Yeah, so most people, will buy like a single family home and rent out to the family, lease out by the year. But you can actually get way more rental income by renting out by the room to college students. So typically, I'll buy within like a 5 minute walk or 5 minute driving distance to campus, and that makes my rooms in high demand because students are paying more like $600 to $700 per month rather than on-campus housing that charges $1,200 per month, and you have to have a bunkmate and you have to have a meal plan and all of that.
Right.
Versus staying off campus, they basically save half the rent. And so I charge about like 620 to, well, nowadays I charge 650 per room, and I have 5 or 6 bedrooms. And you can imagine just having 5 bedrooms is already like $3,100, $3,200 in rental income. When
Right.
normally in the area that I invest in, it's actually more like $1,500 in rental income if you rent out to a family.
Right.
So 1,500 versus like 3,100, you make
Right.
a much more cash flow in that spread.
For sure. Now you're in California, aren't you, Ryan?
Yeah, that's right. Uh-huh.
Okay.
So I'm based
And
in Stockton and Sacramento.
okay.
I'm actually house hacking the one I'm living in Sacramento,
Mhm.
where I rent out to 5 other tenants, and they pay about 3650 per month,
Mhm.
while my mortgage is only about 1380 per month.
Right. So, and what I just heard you say is the average property you have, the rental rate would be $1,500 to $1,600 a month. Your
Yeah,
mortgage
yeah,
payment is over 13, so that would not be
yeah,
a
yeah.
cash flow situation
Yeah,
as
yeah,
a
yeah,
regular
exactly. Sorry,
rental.
I did make a mistake. I want to correct myself. For the one in Sacramento, it's $2,300 for my mortgage payment, but
Right.
and then my rental income is 3,650. But
Right.
I'm also living in it for free. For the
Gotcha.
Stockton ones, it's more like 1,300 to 1,500.
Right.
Like I mentioned.
So is all of your investing at this point local to where you are? You're not even doing stuff remotely now. You're staying local. It seemed like in our conversation you said you were starting to look at other things, but
Yes.
you're staying local right now.
So I have 6 properties in California. I
Mhm.
actually just closed on one property in Alabama, and
Right.
I'm closing on a property in Cleveland, Ohio, in
Mhm.
about a couple weeks or so. So
Right.
I'm actually, buying
Well,
out of
guys,
state as well.
if you've got that kind of cash flow on properties in California, well, gosh, what's the average price you're paying for a house right now out there
In
in California?
California, I mean,
Yeah.
in Sacramento, it's in the
Right.
$500,000 range, and
And I
Stockton is more like 350 to
mhm.
450,000.
And I'd be willing to bet the houses that you're buying in Alabama or Ohio are half that cost or less.
Yeah, exactly. So the
Right.
one we got in Alabama was 225,000, and
Right.
then the one in Ohio we got for 210,000. But the
Mhm.
one in Alabama has about 2,800 square foot, so
Right.
we can put in 7 or 8 bedrooms into that one. And I'm
Right.
buying that one with a partner.
Right.
So my partner actually purchased one in Alabama for 300,000,
Mhm.
rented out each bed. She got 8 bedrooms in there.
Mhm.
Rented out each for 550 a piece, and so she's getting $4,450 in rental income, while the mortgage on that was about $1,500 per month. So
Right.
it's a $300,000 house. So
Right.
her spread is anywhere from like 2,500 to 2,700.
Right. That's amazing.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Yeah.
it's pretty crazy how much you could definitely make out of state.
Yeah. Matt had a
Or
question. Is renting to students hard on the house though?
So I would say if you choose the right student, it's about choosing the right students, right? So usually we're choosing people who are in graduate school, like professional degrees, pharmacy, dentistry, MD, nursing, for example. And these people have already gone through like undergrad programs, or maybe they've gone through a few years of college already. So they're really focused on finishing up their degree. And a lot of these schools, they'll even run through summer. And so they're really highly focused on their studies. They don't have time to go throw house parties or anything like that. So most of the time, they're not even at the house. A lot of them will be there just to kind of eat, have dinner, maybe take a shower, sleep. That's about it. The rest of the time, they're at school or they're studying in the library.
Yeah, I think that the mindset most people new to this have to get over first is when they think about a college student, they think about the movie Animal House or something like that.
Exactly. That's
and gosh, you're only 28. That may be. I think everybody's heard of that.
Oh, I've watched it. Yeah.
Okay. Sure. All right. Yeah, I bet you did. That was kind of like research for the student housing, wasn't it? For sure. Hey, Kelly.
Exactly.
Hey, Kelly. Good morning. Good to see you. Matt's got a follow-up question. How do you analyze the deal from far away?
Yeah, that's a great one. So what you want to do is start with market analysis. Basically, it's called market research. So a couple things I do, I will go on to like Facebook groups, local like housing groups for that area or for that school, and I'll see what people are charging on there. And I'll maybe even message some of the landlords and ask them, hey, did you get a lot of demand? Are there a lot of other applicants in that area? I can even talk to some of the apartments, and I'll see like how quickly they're leased out. Some of them will say, oh yeah, we've been booked fully with students since May of 2022, right? Now I know, okay, there's quite a bit of demand there, and maybe there's a lack of housing for students. So I will talk to people. I will do the research online. There's Craigslist as well. And then once I know how much I could charge per bedroom, the equation just becomes, can I find a house where I can add quite a few bedrooms and rent out by the room, like my 500 or 600, and how much will my mortgage be? And then basically whatever the spread is your cash flow. Now, one thing I would caution is, especially when you're looking all around the United States, you want to make sure you also meet the planning and zoning ordinances. So there's local ordinances, city ordinances you have to follow, and some of them might say you can't have too many unrelated tenants. But a lot of them allow up to like 5 or 6 or 7 or just unlimited unrelated tenants. It really depends on the city you're investing in. California, luckily, has very favorable zoning because it's a very dense city. They have very dense cities. They don't really have too many restrictions in most of the cities in California.
Right. That is a really good point. That was actually one of my questions down the list.
Oh, yeah.
Is about the due diligence process here, because I see so many investors now taking on deals that are horribly structured, bad financing, want cash flow, and the solution is always, oh, we'll just make it an Airbnb. But what happens when the government shuts it down in that city? What do you do? And so my question to you was going to be, what about these potential problems? Do you see a trend running, like negativity towards Airbnbs, the same thing with student housing, or is that seen as more of a necessary thing for people to go to college and that sort of thing? Are you seeing similar problems with student housing like we're seeing with Airbnb across the country?
Yeah, so the problem with Airbnb is it creates a lot of vacancies. And I don't think cities like that because it's kind of taking housing off the table for people versus student housing, rent by the room. We're basically, because we're renting by the room and we have long-term leases, all my leases are 1-year leases. We're actually providing more housing, more high density housing. So a lot of cities actually encourage it. There's even cities that will say, oh yeah, no more than 3 unrelated occupants. But if you're in this area near the university, like within the zone around the university, you can have up to 5, 6, or 7 unrelated occupants. So they actually do. A lot of them are pretty encouraging of it too. Plus, it's kind of like a de facto thing, to be honest. Like students need housing, and the university a lot of times can't house all the students. So they're and a lot of departments also can't house all the students. So a lot of them turn to off-campus housing.
So for sure, guys, add that to your due diligence part of your list, that you meet with city zoning, and I guess they could fill you in on any potential problems coming along the way. Something you
Yeah,
learn.
call the planning division. Once the
Right.
planning division kind of gives you the okay, I recommend getting an email or getting it in writing somehow. And they say, oh yeah, you can do student housing here. Then yeah, go for it for sure.
Okay, awesome. Vincent had a question. Ryan, would you be willing to partner? I have a house I just flipped in Columbus, Ohio, 3 bedroom, 2 bath.
Message me afterwards. Might be interested in it. I'm taking on a couple projects on my own with partners. I definitely have quite a few people who want to partner up to do this strategy, but
Mhm.
sure, send me
Yeah.
a text or a DM.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so we've got a question here that comes right into what I was going to get into later. We'll go ahead and do this one. How are you marketing? And I'm assuming the question is marketing for properties. Maybe it's marketing for students too, but maybe you can cover both of those things. So how do you
Yeah.
market for properties, and then how do you market specifically for students?
Yeah, so for the properties, again, it's about doing the market research and then contacting landlords who kind of are offering off-campus housing and seeing what their demand is. As far as like marketing for students, I use the PRIME method. So PRIME. Basically, it means looking for high quality tenants, prime tenants. That's why we call it prime. But P stands for placement of advertisements. So you want to place your ads where your target tenants hang out. So like putting up your ads where they're not hanging out is like fishing in an empty pond. So you want to get in front of your target tenants' faces, right? So I highly recommend like Facebook housing groups, like college campus housing groups, just campus groups, Facebook groups in general. Also student bulletin boards. There's also Craigslist, Roomster. There's some apps out there. Roommates.com. There's a lot of different areas where students kind of go to look for housing. And one question you can ask in the market research phase is like, where do you guys look for off-campus housing? And they'll tell you a lot of times it will be like Facebook groups, right? And sometimes you can even ask them to invite you in. R stands for reviewing social media. So that means going through their social media profile, looking for evidence of smoking, alcohol, drugs, rave parties, and kind of identify what type of tenant they are. I actually stands for identifying the type of tenant. So is this somebody like when you're communicating with them, are they always asking for like a cheaper deal? Are they easy to communicate with? Do they get angry easily? Right? Because tenants like that you might have more issues down the road with that.
Right.
M stands for measuring responsiveness. The more responsive the tenant is, the more responsible they usually are. So like if someone's paying late rent, right, I want them to respond right away to me and send that late rent rather than me having to chase them down. So that's really important. And then E stands for ensuring proof of income. You always, no matter what, have to make sure that there's income coming in enough to cover the rent and then
Right.
some. So usually I'll get like the parents' bank statements. Sometimes students will take out, have financial aid that goes towards the room and board. I actually it's a funny story. I had one tenant who, his father got sick or whatever. So he signed a lease, but he couldn't move in. But the financial aid was paying for the whole thing. And since
Right.
it wasn't coming out of his pocket, he was like, okay, it's fine. We'll just pay it from the financial aid. No
Right.
big deal. And so he actually, the whole year, he paid the full for the rent for the whole year. And he didn't even move in to the bedroom, which is pretty crazy to me. I was
Yeah.
like, oh my God, you sure you want to pay this? And he's like, yeah, we're not footing the bill. So,
Right.
yeah, anyways. And, he wanted to uphold his end of the lease.
Right.
So, yeah, ensuring proof of income. Students also have student loans that they can take out that cover room and board. And,
Right.
Obviously we are saving them a lot of money by staying off campus versus paying for on-campus housing.
Right. Right, exactly. And I know you mentioned that you prefer people who are in higher levels of learning that are more serious. They're not the partiers. I used to know a guy
Yeah.
years ago that had a couple of similar situations. And you may do this too, but I think it's a really good tip for people. When you are dealing with the younger people, don't just get their signature on things. Get their parents on the hook for that stuff. If they tear your house up, if they create problems, then their parents are on the hook for that. So it's much more likely to get your rent on time and get damages taken care of, things like that. Would you agree?
Yeah, exactly. A parent co-signer.
Yeah.
I would say out of my 5 years of doing this, I maybe had 2 repairs I had to make, but both
Mhm.
of them were accidental. They weren't intentional.
Right.
And, that's why you collect a good security deposit. I
Sure.
usually try to collect a month and a half worth
Mhm.
for the security deposit.
Right.
And yeah, I've never had to worry about paying for like, major repairs out of
Right.
pocket that are tenant inflicted. Of
Right.
course, if like the washer breaks down or something like that, that might
Mhm.
not be the tenant's issue. It just might be an old
Right.
washer. So I would replace that.
Right. Now, I know from our conversation, you said you're looking for a specific type of property for these, and in general, ones that you can add value to, extra bedrooms, that sort of thing.
Yes.
So tell us about those properties and how do you target market for sellers of those type of properties? How do you do that?
Yeah, so number one thing in real estate investing is always location, right?
Mhm.
Especially in this niche, you really want to be very particular with which houses you choose. You want to be within a 5 to 7 minute walking distance if possible. That's like the most prime location. But
Mhm.
some schools are a little bit more commuter schools because it's harder to access the school, from the neighborhoods that are surrounding it. Maybe it's surrounded by like commercial real estate, for instance, or maybe it's surrounded by a freeway or a river or something like that. So for those ones, be within a 5 to 7 minute drive, I would say.
Mhm.
Second thing is square footage. So the more bedrooms you can add, obviously, the more you can increase your rental income. A 5 bedroom place will usually make at least 3,000 per month if you're renting out at 600 per room.
Right.
6 bedroom would make like $3,500 or sorry, $3,600 per month renting out by the room. So it's I really look for a square footage of 1,500 to 2,000, and the higher ones maybe 2,800 to 3,000. But the more square footage you have at the house, the more potential for it to make a lot of cash flow.
Right.
And then I look for like things like general condition of the house. I usually choose mostly turnkey properties
Mhm.
because I don't want to have to, do a 6 month renovation and lose out on $3,000 per month for those 6 months. That's like
Right.
$18,000 I'm losing out
Mhm.
on. I'd rather buy a turnkey one, have it rent out right away, start making that cash flow right away.
Right.
Um, so that's basically the main criteria I look for.
Mhm.
Um, those are the 3 things I would focus on.
Gotcha. Okay, a
Yeah.
couple of comments here. I need to meet up with Ryan. Well, if we knew who you were, Facebook user, but we've got some information we're going to share with you, so you can contact Ryan if you'd like to. Let's see. How do you like the Ohio market? Great prices and opportunities. You just bought one there, didn't you?
Yep, exactly. There's a lot of yeah, different areas in Ohio where you can make a lot of cash flow. I mean, like
Mhm.
Cleveland is a great area, has a couple schools there, a couple great top colleges, like OSU. There's yeah, different areas, but you of course, depending on which city you invest in, you have to double check the ordinances.
Mhm. Okay.
But yeah, it's a great market for sure.
All right. John said, "Who do you have managing your properties?"
Yeah. So for this method, especially if you invest out of state, you want to create a really strong team.
Mhm.
So a lot of that is having excellent contractors, having like backup contractors and handyman in case the initial contractor can't do the work. I also use like software like Tenant Cloud, for instance, where you can collect rent payments. It'll charge them automatically for late rent. They can put in like maintenance requests, and then it'll get sent to your contractor. All that type of stuff
Mhm.
you can use to basically automate everything so you
Mhm.
don't necessarily have to hire a property manager, but you can hire a property manager. I have several clients who do, and they usually charge 8 to 12%, right, of your rental income. But because you're making so much cash flow anyways, yeah, it's totally
Right.
fine paying them like 300, 400 a month to manage
Mhm.
these properties.
Right. Okay. Gosh, we got some great questions. This is a great one. Vincent said, "How do you set the rules in the house? Who cleans up, takes out the trash? I mean, do you provide services for them like a weekly cleaning or monthly? How do you handle all that stuff?"
Yeah, so we have annual cleaning before
Mhm.
the new tenants move in.
Mhm.
But as far as in between, there, we it's kind of like we set up rules like on Airbnb, no house parties, no this or that, right? But for the most part, we choose high quality tenants, so
Mhm.
that kind of prevents issues from, like, let's say we have just like a few really serious studiers, right? They really want to get their doctorate degree. They're not going to tolerate their other housemate like creating, inviting 80 people over for a house party, right? Because they're like, no, we can't do that. I have to focus. I have finals to study for, right?
Mhm.
So just having even a few really good, high quality tenants will make it so that the atmosphere of the house is primarily to focus on studying.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, for the most part, yeah, I don't really care what kind of happens in between. At the
Mhm.
end of the year, we have the cleaning, deep cleaning. Everything gets thrown out. All the trash gets thrown out for the new incoming tenants, and yeah, it's okay with me. Um,
So, so you don't really set the rules like, okay, Bob, you clean the kitchen, the second Sunday of every month, or you let them sort
no.
that out themselves.
So I have suggestions, but they
Mhm.
are also adults. So I
Mhm. Right.
empower them to kind of solve a lot of these issues on their own.
Right.
Like changing a light bulb, for instance, right? I'll
Mhm.
provide the light bulbs,
Right.
and you could YouTube how to change a light bulb if
Right.
if you need the help doing that, right? I'm
Yeah.
not going to go over there or have a handyman go over there to change a light bulb.
Right. So
Yeah,
there's no micromanagement. It's just like, you know, you're living with roommates that you didn't necessarily pick, but Ryan tries to pick high quality tenants. I'm just wondering
yeah,
how you handle potential conflicts, and because we always worry before we do something. We always
yeah,
worry about all the possible things that can happen. What happens if two tenants get in a fight? What happens if one tenant steals from another? How do you handle
yeah.
those things? How often does stuff like that even happen, really?
Yeah, so that's a very good question for sure. First thing I try to do is try to pair them up with based off like what their major is. For instance, I'll have like a pharmacy house, I'll have a dental school house, I'll have like an engineering student
Mhm.
house. So that kind of helps a lot because they can help each other out. Maybe one is second year, the other is first year, so the second year is helping mentor the first year student. So that's really great. But the other thing I do is I would say tenant conflicts out of my 30 tenants that I have happen maybe once a year. Some years actually I haven't even had any conflicts, but it maybe might happen once a year. And basically what I do is I empower that tenant to, or I tell that tenant, hey, why don't you have a one-on-one discussion with this face-to-face discussion with that other guy? Say, hey, this is what's upsetting me. Come up with an actionable plan together so that, you don't get upset again or they don't get upset, and implement that plan over the next 1 to 2 weeks. And then if after 2 weeks you're still having issues with that person, you can come to me and I can talk to them. But me talking to them versus you talking to them, it's probably better if you talk to them. Otherwise, if I talk to them, they're going to say like, oh yeah, this guy is talking to the landlord behind my
Yeah.
back, and the
Mhm.
situation gets worse.
Mhm.
So 9 times out of 10, like 95% of the time I do that, I don't hear from them ever again. I'll send
Mhm.
out, basically, I have a templated email that I send out. I'll send it to them 2 weeks later. I don't hear anything from them. So, I assume it's pretty resolved. Yeah.
In your houses, do you ever have something like a lead person there? In other words, if there are six people renting this house for the year, is there ever
Mhm.
one that maybe gets a reduced rent or some kind of perk, and they sort of oversee things at the house, like the boss tenant or something, or is everybody just on equal footing there?
Sometimes I would say as far as like paying utilities, if
Mhm.
like all the people know, like they're all friends, for instance, then
Mhm.
they're pretty comfortable having all the utilities under one of the tenant's names. And then
Mhm.
that tenant will basically pay the utilities and bill back the other tenants.
Mhm.
But other than that, no, I don't have somebody who's the boss or anything
Right.
like that. Yeah. They're
So
they're
this
all, adults
So this
that
doesn't
can.
operate like an Airbnb. They pay for all the utilities too. They pay you rent, and then they
Yep.
pay the
Yep.
utilities, everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
They'll pay, yeah, water, gas, electric,
mhm,
internet, and then I'll cover landscaping costs.
okay.
But yeah,
And you try to set that up that way. You don't have the utilities on and then worry about collecting from everybody. You don't
no,
have that headache. How do you
no,
find?
exactly. Because students, well, I guess people in general could be notorious for, overusing the AC during summer or
Mhm,
overusing the heater during winter,
right.
right? So if they're responsible for their own utility bills, they're incentivized to save energy,
Mhm,
save gas.
right.
And, I think overall that's better for an environment too. So that's why
Right.
I do that.
Well,
rather than charge them and back charge them. Yeah,
you're the expert on this, but I just can't imagine how that works. So you got 6 people moving into a house, and one of them voluntarily has the utilities put in their name. I mean,
Mhm.
that's really simple to do, because I would think everybody would go, "Oh no, I'm not going to be responsible for $1,000 light bill, and Joe may not pay me, and Sue may not pay me, and what do I do? How does that work?" But you say,
Only we'll do that if they're like good friends, right?
right?
Like if they're maybe part of the same fraternity, or they're just, all a group of friends that came in. And a lot of times that's what you get. You'll get one person contact you and they're like, "Oh, by the way, I have like 3 other friends or 4 other
Oh,
friends who want to room in the house with me." I'm like, "Yeah, sure. That's great. That makes my life easier, right?"
for sure, yeah. So Vincent asked, "Did COVID affect your rentals?"
Yes, absolutely.
Mhm,
But not as bad as I thought. So
mhm,
at the time, I was making about $10,800 per month in rental income,
mhm.
and obviously when COVID hit, I panicked because colleges went online. I was like, "Oh my gosh, they're not going to want to stay. They're going to want to get out of their leases, all that." And sure enough, a couple of them did want to get out of their leases. With that being said, I sent out an email. I asked, "Hey, if you guys, are still, want to get out of your lease, let me know." And then for the ones who let me know that they want to get out of the lease, I offered them a discount. Like if I give you like 100, 150 off, would you still potentially consider staying at the house? And like, I would say maybe half of them said, "Oh yeah, for 100 or 150 off, sure." Right. Or the ones that, came back to me and said, "Oh, I'm not too sure." I say, "Name your price." Right. And so I did do some rental reductions during COVID, but for the most part, students didn't want to go back home to their parents' place because it was too distracting for a lot of them. That's what they told me when they decided to stay at my house. They said it was too distracting at home. I like being here with my other friends. We can look at review lectures through Zoom together, and so to them it was like they're kind of missing that college life, and they rather just stay near campus still.
Right.
So I had my places fully occupied. Eventually,
Mhm,
I did a lot of more outreach, a lot more marketing, a lot more outreach, and I would call every student who was interested.
mhm.
And doing that, I was able to get all of my bedrooms filled. I think 23 tenants at the time, and make $9,300 per month in rental income versus
Mhm.
10,800. So I lost out on maybe 1,500 per month, but that's still
Right.
way over the mortgage payments that I had.
Oh, for
So I was
sure.
like, yeah, this
Yeah.
worked out. And I had it fully occupied for the whole year, even during
Mhm.
COVID, throughout COVID.
Awesome. Hey guys, y'all can check out Ryan at newbierealestateinvesting.com. Y'all check out his website and see he offers some training and of course, some other information, more information about this. So y'all go take a look at it. Let's see, we've got a ton of questions here, man. Carla said, "Are you using typical leasing documents? Is there anything special about your leases?"
Yeah, so it's a 1 year lease.
Mhm.
I'll have leases on an individual basis, actually. So they'll maybe come in at different times. That's why I do individual leases. But I do a year round, and then they can always sublease it during the
Mhm.
summer sessions or the summer school
Right.
to other tenants or to their
Okay.
friends.
Okay. All right. Vincent asked, "How are you financing your deals?"
Yeah, so a lot of this can actually be done by, just using conventional financing. I still work my W-2 job. I
Mhm.
work 32 hours a week as a
Mhm.
pharmacist right now. Um, and eventually, actually, next year, I'm gonna retire. A funny story about that, actually, it's my why story is so we had this pharmacist. He was a senior pharmacist. He just retired at 65. He really hated his job. He had a couple divorces, so a lot of the money was going toward alimony and
Mhm.
whatnot. And so he would come into work every day with poor attitude, hating his job. And he said he wanted to retire like every day, right? And so he finally retired, right? And so we threw a retirement party. But get this, 3 months later, he passed away from a massive heart attack.
Oh, wow.
And what's even crazier is that like a month after that, nobody even remember. It seemed like nobody even talked about him, right? It's almost like he wasn't even there in the
Mhm.
first place. So
Right.
I always wanted it to work a career where I'm not gonna be forgotten, a
Right.
few weeks after I pass away, or if I were to, God forbid, pass away. And that's why I kind of created this real estate investing, newbie real estate investing, for example. That's why I'm retiring from pharmacy next year, is I didn't want to work the same job every single day and eventually, get tired of it and have to retire when I'm 65.
Right.
And, who knows at that time how much time I have left.
Right. Right. I know exactly what you're talking about. When I first got started investing, I'd spent 20 years in the restaurant industry and worked 60,
Yeah.
70 plus hours a week. I mean, I didn't see my family very much. I worked all the time. I would sell my vacations. Your annual vacation you get. I would sell them because I needed the money and I didn't have time to take them anyway. And when I finally started investing and making a little money and able to take a vacation, you go on these cruises. And all of these older people are on these cruises lugging around these oxygen tanks. You know what I mean? Like, they're already on oxygen, health support. I thought, man, those guys worked all of their life. And now when they're retired, they can't even enjoy it because they're half dead. I want to live while I'm alive. You know what I mean? I want to go places and do stuff. So I know, man, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I could tell like he was stressed out a lot, and I think it was from the job, and all that stress, added up eventually, and he only got to enjoy just 3 months of retirement before he passed away. So I was like, oh my God, I don't want to live that life, right?
That's sad.
And
it sounds like, I mean, you're getting out of it. You're going to be retired. Gosh, and I mean, you could walk away from it right now. I mean, if you're making $18,000 a month, most people can live a pretty decent life, even in California. On 200,000 a year. I mean, it's better than a poke in the eye with a sharp stick. Anyway, but that's amazing.
No, real estate is a very powerful tool to create wealth. Pretty much most of the wealthy people I know have gone into real estate,
right?
Or own quite a bit of real estate. Yeah.
Absolutely. So we got a user here. I think we've addressed this. Do you have the parents co-sign on the lease? And I'm guessing, is there like a certain age cutoff where you go? I mean, obviously, if a 40-year-old, that's getting their master's, they're not going to, their parents aren't going to sign. But do you have an age?
Right.
What decides whether the parents are on the hook too?
No, we don't have any age like restrictions. I actually had an engineer come in for one of my houses. He was around 45 or 50 or so. So yeah, I'm totally fine as long as it's I could tell they're a high quality tenant. They have great communication and everything like that. But as far as co-signing, I usually will have co-signers if I'm worried that they're going to have issues paying the rent. But if they have like financial aid for a significant amount coming in already, that'll go towards the rent. I'm not too worried that, I don't necessarily need a co-signer in every case.
Right. Okay. So if you've got a 21-year-old or 20-year-old that looks good everywhere else, you're not necessarily going to make their parents sign for them.
Exactly. It's a case-on-case basis.
I got you. Okay. Let's see. Bobby said, get the parents on the hook all the time.
You could, if you want to do that, you totally can. Yeah.
Let's see. Could you quickly recap the prime categories? I missed the last two.
Oh, yeah, sure. So P stands for placement of advertisements. You want to get in front of the face of the people you're advertising to. Reviewing social media. Identifying type of tenant. Is this like when you're communicating with them, are they difficult to communicate with? Do they get really angry easily? Are they frustrated or needy? You get that kind of vibe from them. Measuring responsiveness is the M. Measure responsiveness because the more responsive they are, the more responsible they tend to be. And E stands for ensuring proof of income. Ensuring proof of income from either their parents or from like financial aid or student loans. There's plenty of ways students can pay for housing.
Gotcha. Okay. You said insuring, and that just reminded me of another question I had earlier. Is there any difference in the type of insurance or liability that you could have doing these rooms, renting by the room? Do you do your property insurance any different, or liability, or any of those things?
Oh, I always give a full disclosure to my home insurance company that I'm saying, we're renting out by the room to students, and they're totally fine with it. We get the same rates and everything, actually.
Right. So there's no difference.
There's usually no difference. No.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Usually it's like if they don't want to insure a house that is in a bad condition. So like a fixer upper or something like that, right? But for student housing, no, I didn't notice any difference.
Okay. Let's see. Are you rehabbing these properties before you rent them? I think you said earlier you like turnkey stuff, but
Mostly turnkey.
But you obviously have to do some work if you're adding bedrooms and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of the bedroom work is actually a lot cheaper than you would think. It costs maybe $1,500 to $2,500 just to put up some drywall and a door.
Right.
That's pretty much all you have to do for a lot of them. Some of them, it's just repurposing an existing room already. So one of them had like a family room already, and it had a sliding door to the kitchen. So we just replaced it with a regular bedroom door. That's the only modification we had to do for that one, though.
Right.
So super cheap. I might build out a bathroom from a half bathroom to a full bathroom, which just basically means adding a shower.
Right.
Just because, students all take showers. So I like to have, full bathrooms whenever possible. So maybe I'll convert a 1.5 bathroom house to a 2 bathroom house by building out the bathroom. That's about the extent of the renovations I really have to do for most of my properties.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's see, Lewis, I need help closing a sub-2 deal with an FHA loan in Lynchburg, Virginia. Can someone please help or refer me to someone who can? We can help you with that, Lewis. Join us if you're not already in $7 coaching. Come on in there, ask your questions. We'll get all of your questions answered and help you through that process. You can also give us details. Looks like you're on YouTube. Give us details about the deal. I'll answer that for you. Here after we're through with the broadcast. Love to help you with that. So congrats, you got a deal under contract. Good for you. Nice. Phil said, do you have them sign a 12-month or 9-month lease? Sounds like it's a full year.
Yeah, it's a 12-month lease for all of them. What I do though in between, so like let's say they sign up and they move in January, I'll basically have the lease from January to July 31st. Then I get everyone on an August to August lease.
Right.
Because that's just like, what's preferred, I would say, for students as well.
Okay. Matt said, do you allow pets?
I have a strict no cat or dog policy. The reason is, well, for one, I'm allergic to cats myself, and it's pretty bad. So I say the same thing, because it's a shared space for people. Due to the liability of someone having an allergic reaction, either one of the current tenants or a guest. From having an allergic reaction, we just have a strict no cat or dog policy. Other pets are allowed, though. But
like
yeah,
snakes,
the allergies I can't allow.
Okay, so snakes.
I mean, like my aunt or whatever can have had like an anaphylactic reaction to pets before. So there's definitely you can't have pets if someone's allergic to them at the house.
Okay, gotcha. All right. Vincent said, do you fully furnish your units for the students? Or are they responsible for like their bedroom stuff, or do you just Airbnb it and it's totally furnished?
I usually furnish them. I find that adds value to the room. A lot of students, it's basically move-in ready. They don't have to bring in their beds or a desk or anything like that. So to them, I find it's like a huge plus. And I charge a little bit more maybe for the furnishings as well.
Right.
But yeah.
Okay. Phil asked, are you trying to buy a nicer house or average house, median price? I mean, that's all part of, I guess, evaluating the property. What is an ideal property for you, Ryan? What are you looking for? What's the best type to choose other than, 10 minutes from the college? What are the attributes of that house?
Yeah, again, in good condition. I try to stay away from older houses. So the first house I bought was like 100 years old, and I had to make a lot of renovations to it because like the HVAC, there was no AC because it was so old. The sewage line broke on me, so that cost me a couple $1,000s. So I stay away from 100-year-old houses because the first house I bought cost me over $30,000 in repairs. Just preventable. Things I could have caught probably during escrow when I was doing my due diligence. I would also say, let's see, obviously high square footage, enough parking. So if you have like 4 or 5 students, you want to make sure there's adequate parking and you're not going to have to park in front of your neighbor's house and annoy them, right? So that's really important as well. Yeah, those are the main criteria.
Hmm. Okay. And otherwise, I mean, just any house goes. I mean, but you're not looking for, so, when you say you're looking for the ability to add additional bedrooms, what is the
Mhm.
smallest house you would consider? I mean, a three
I would
bedroom
say
or
1,500. Yeah, so 1,500 square foot houses, you can get a fourth bedroom for sure,
Mhm.
a fifth bedroom sometimes. So I usually kind of go hover around that mark, 1,500 square foot or more, if
Right.
possible.
Okay. All right. And Matt asked this question, and I think you covered that sort of in your prime for
Mhm.
finding tenants. What is a high quality tenant to you?
Yeah, so somebody who's not very needy, somebody who you're not worried they're going to cause issues down the line based off how they speak to you and respond to you. I want somebody who's going to address me like, "Oh, hello, Mr. Chaw. I'm really interested in your place. Can we set up a time together?" Basically very professional versus like, "Yo, what's up? I want to stay at your property," kind of thing, right?
Right. Right.
So I also screen their social media, so I look for people who have pretty professional pictures, not like dark selfies or tattoos everywhere. And I mean, not that I'm biased against tattoos or anything, but I
Mhm.
would say I could kind of judge based off of the pictures,
Mhm.
and if they're doing a lot of drinking and smoking and things like that, are they going to be like a good quality tenant or not?
Mhm. Right. And I think I know the answer to this question, but I know there are probably some other people wanting to know.
Mhm.
It would seem like this type of housing, lower cost for people, everything else is in super high demand. So when you bring one on the market, I mean, you don't have any problems filling these at all, do you? You never really have a vacancy.
No, exactly. Because you're so close to the school, it's always
Right.
going to be in high demand. And school is here. I mean, there's fall, spring, and then there's summer school. So there's always times where students need housing.
Right.
And so I don't have any vacancies. I maybe have like a week in between the August to
Mhm.
August, but they're on August to August leases. So
Right.
sometimes they'll go home for winter break or whatnot. But obviously they're still responsible for paying
Right.
rent.
And I may have just missed something in this, so I'm going to go back to this question.
Hmm.
Um, and because everybody pretty much in here is they market for sellers. They're looking for sellers who have a problem so they can buy their property. If
Right.
if if I decide that I want to offer student housing, like we have a property avatar. We do a very specific thing. We only buy subject to, we only sell with seller financing. I'm looking for houses ideally that are less than 10 years old, minimum three bedrooms,
Yep.
garages. I mean, I'm looking for a specific thing. How would I go out? How does Ryan look? Ryan says, I want to buy a new house in College Town, USA.
Hmm.
What are your specifics in looking for that house? Do you just call up an agent and say, I need a three bedroom, minimum 1,500 square feet within 10 minutes of the school? Or do you use some kind of program like PropStream to search for houses within a certain distance from the school, and you do mailers? I mean, what do you do? How do you buy houses, Ryan?
Yeah, exactly. That's a great question. So I do actually contact some agents in the area, and
Mhm.
I have them set me up for MLS listing, off-market deals. A
Mhm.
lot of them will actually do their own or some of them will do their own marketing, so they have access to off-market deals. I had two of them actually come from off-market from an agent because he
Mhm.
knew exactly what I'm looking for. And
Right.
I just tell him my criteria, like you said, very close to the campus. The closer, the better. Safer, neighborhoods, definitely. I don't want to buy in a neighborhood that has a lot of trash and homeless walking around,
Right.
because the parents aren't going to feel safe putting their kids
Right.
there. Also, square footage, obviously,
Mhm.
it's a big criteria.
Mhm.
I want to maximize the cash flow. And
Right.
so, the more number of bedrooms, the
Mhm.
better. Obviously, not too many that people feel uncomfortable. Like once you get to 8 or 9, it starts feeling a little uncomfortable for some students. So I would say, unless you have a super large house,
Mhm.
maybe do 5 or 6 to start
Right.
off with.
Mhm.
Um, and let's see the other criteria I already mentioned. We're not buying like fixer uppers or anything like that. We're
Right.
buying mostly turnkey
Right.
type properties that have at least 2 bathrooms, so that I can get it up to like 6 bedrooms, right?
Right.
Because if you have like one bathroom for 6 people, that's not going to work out.
Mhm.
So I maintain a 3-to-1 ratio, 3 bedrooms for one bathroom. that works out just fine.
Gotcha. Ryan, do you ever do any type of marketing to distressed sellers? I mean, do you market to people in foreclosure where you can take over pay? I'm just curious. I'm always curious when people say, well, I just use bank financing. Is it just because you prefer not to do it that way, or you would just rather make offers to people with listed properties?
As far as financing or as far as the property on the market? Sorry.
No, I'm talking about like us. We'll pull a list of pre-foreclosures, people that are a couple of months away from having their property auctioned. Go out, talk to them, try to make a deal with them, write them a check for $5,000, take over their payments, and then we can do whatever we want with that house. We can student housing, we can sell it on a wrap, we can rent it, we can live in it. So, I mean, have you ever done anything like that? Do you ever? I mean, is that something that appeals to you?
That's something, you can definitely get a great deal for that, for sure. And combined with the strategy, it could definitely, skyrocket for sure.
Right.
What I would say is, I guess the closest I came to that is maybe like a neighbor was saying, oh yeah, this guy is thinking of eventually selling his property. Just get in contact with him. But as far as like finding a lot of the deals, I would say a lot of them are on Zillow or MLS, luckily, because as long as you have the square footage and you get it at the right price, it's going to cash flow.
Right. Okay.
So it's a little bit more flexible with this strategy. You could definitely do even better using, like you said, like subject to.
Yeah. Right. Phil's one of our Sub 2 Max students. He said, I'm in Sacramento. We need to meet, Ryan. So
sounds good, Phil.
With you. Yeah, check Ryan out. Guys, y'all can I'm sure you can contact him from his website if you have questions, but I know he's got a lot of information about student housing at newbierealestateinvesting.com. Matt.
Yeah, I have a free guide as well. Sorry I didn't want to
go ahead.
interrupt, but there's a free PDF guide. If you go to www.newbierealestateinvesting.com/guide, and then there's the free PDF guide there that kind of goes through my method. And then also it'll sign you up for the newsletter so you can receive updates on my progress, as well as the mistakes I made, obstacles I had to overcome, some of the lessons I learned, and things like that as well.
Gotcha. Okay. Matt had a question. Do you do any wraps? Why just rentals? He said, I have rentals, but the note holding sounds much better. Why did you choose just student housing instead of seller financing or something else?
Yeah, I would say it's just already a lot of cash flow already.
Right.
Obviously that's something that makes sense to me. I definitely agree that you can definitely make even more cash flow if you do something like that. But for me, because we're already renting by the room, we're already making a significant amount of cash flow, and it covers all of our maintenance costs and pays for stellar contractors, so I don't have to worry too much.
Well, I can see, Matt, why he does it. I mean, the cash flow is insane. Our average cash flow on a seller finance property is between $400 and $500 a month. This guy's making 3 times that in cash flow. Plus, as a rental, he gets to depreciate it and offset all of that money he makes as a pharmacist. So for a high W-2 earner, rentals make a lot of sense, especially when you can make them bark like a dog like these do. So
yeah, you could always combine the two too. Like why do one, not the other, right?
For sure. Yeah. Hey, Vincent put in a plug for us. He said, Ryan, you need to sign up for the $7 coaching.
Sounds good.
Yeah. He also said, what is the average cost to furnish a house? What are you spending on a package?
Yeah, it could cost anywhere from, like, if you want to fully furnish it. Sometimes I get a lot of the furniture from the previous seller, which is great. But if I have to fully furnish it, it could be like maybe $3,000, $4,000, maybe $5,000, depending on how big the house is. If it's like a 3,000 square foot house and I'm furnishing 7 bedrooms or 8 bedrooms, then yeah, it's gonna be more like 5,000 maybe. But yeah.
Is there a company that you recommend to do that's affordable and provides quality furniture? Now, the reason I ask this question is for me, because when I moved back to the U.S. and rented an unfurnished apartment in Colorado, I wanted to, I was trying to find something furnished and I couldn't there. So I called this company Court that I
Hmm.
think is part of, I think Warren Buffett owns it. But anyway,
Oh, nice.
and they bring you a package, bedroom, living room, kitchen. And that was the cheapest, most expensive furniture I've ever seen. So do you have
Mhm.
a company that does that stuff that you would recommend for quality and price?
You know, I've been kind of getting a lot of my things from, and I have like a list of
Hmm.
like of furnishings and links and everything. But basically, Amazon, Walmart, Target, Facebook Marketplace. So if you're local to the area, you can actually go on Facebook Marketplace and buy used furniture, but still really good furniture if
Hmm.
you really want to save money.
Hmm.
Um, but I would say those are my main resources.
Right.
I do use like Mattress Firm or maybe Ashley
Hmm.
Furniture
Right.
for some of the beds.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's where I would go.
Okay.
But I understand. Yeah, there's definitely some places that have local thrift stores
Hmm.
that do have cheaper furnishings. So definitely ask around.
Hmm. Okay.
Sometimes I'll do that. Yeah.
All right. Vincent asked, do you furnish it? I mean, just like an Airbnb with the kitchen stuff, plates, TVs, or, I mean, do you provide those things too?
Yeah, yeah. A lot of the kitchenware you can get from the Dollar Tree. That's the other
Mhm.
thing. 99-cent store, Dollar Tree. You can
Right.
get most of your like kitchenware there.
Gotcha. Okay. Anthony asked, do you think this strategy would work with a quadruplex?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's all about square footage, right?
Hmm.
So I really, when I look at the houses from the pictures, I really try to determine where can I add those bedrooms. It's even better to get a video walkthrough, obviously.
Right.
So for out the state investing, I'll do a virtual FaceTime or Zoom call so that I can record it. And then I'll just kind of determine, okay, where can we add those bedrooms? And
Hmm.
if we can add, 2 or 3 bedrooms, does it make sense cash flow wise?
Right. Gotcha. Okay. And yes, Vincent, I am talking about Court Furniture, CORT. Man, that stuff, I was not impressed with them, but that's just me. I don't know. Guys, Ryan, you can reach him at newbierealestateinvesting.com. As he said earlier, he's got a free PDF telling you a lot about this technique. You can contact him from there if you have questions. And I know he also offers some training on how to do this. I think it's pretty turnkey coaching, start to
Hmm.
finish. You'll walk people through the process, what they need to be looking for, how to screen the tenants, and all that sort of thing. So if you're interested in student housing, definitely get in touch with Ryan. Ryan, any final advice for anybody thinking about doing this?
Yeah, so as far as the coaching program, it's a 6 month coaching program, one-on-one calls through Zoom, just like we're doing now, basically.
Mhm.
And the calls will be like half an hour to an hour,
Mhm.
depending on how much things we want to go over, how much making sure your implementation steps,
Mhm.
your action steps for the next week or two,
Right.
and we meet twice a month through those calls, and in between we can text, email, whatever. And so you really do get a lot of support in setting this up for yourself.
Mhm.
One of my most successful students actually bought a house in Alabama. Now
Mhm.
I'm actually partnering with her, but
Right.
like I said, she bought a house in Alabama. It's a $300,000 house. Her mortgage payment was like $1,600 per month. But because she made it into 8 bedrooms and rented out each for $550 a piece, she was
Mhm.
making $4,450 in rental income. So the cash flow was almost nearing $3,000 per month, right?
Right. Yeah, for sure. Plus that, well, gas, and don't forget when you're talking about holding rentals, that depreciation many times will almost totally offset your income. It's amazing. So don't forget the advantage. I mean, we don't do rentals,
Oh
we
yeah.
don't like rentals, but there are a lot of advantages to doing them for sure. So Ryan, thanks so much for being here. We appreciate you taking the time to teach us about student housing.
Thank you so much, William.
Okay, we'll catch you later there. All right, guys, that is it for this episode of Goat Talk. We appreciate you being here. Don't forget, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We a ton of videos every month, and we'll answer your questions there. And if you're interested in some high quality, low cost coaching, just check us out at $7coaching.com. So again, if you're in Little Rock, we're going to be here tonight. We're going to be at Randy's. Just go to Arkansas REIA, I believe it's ARKREIA.com. We're going to be here tonight, and we're going to be here all day Saturday. So everything you want to know about creative finance and sub two, we'll be here, and we'll teach you. So you guys get out there, talk to some sellers today, and buy some houses.